A sudden cry pierces the tense air. One of the soldiers curses under his breath, his eyes filled with the weight of what lies ahead. The battlefield stretches endlessly before them. There's no time to hesitate. This isn't training anymore. This is real. This is war. Spears clash, silhouettes rush forward in a chaotic blur, and the sound of metal fills the sky like thunder. One thought settles in everyone's minds. They're not just fighting, they're surviving. As the dust begins to settle, a voice announces that the opposition has collapsed. The soldier looks around at the aftermath, his expression unreadable. He mutters something under his breath, not out of pity, but maybe out of disbelief. The reality is beginning to sink in. Nearby, others approach a fallen figure. He hasn't moved in some time. One of them suggests ending it quickly, but someone steps forward, asking to inspect. There's something strange here. The figure on the ground twitches barely. That's enough. Without another word, the armored soldier takes action, swiftly and decisively. With the conflict behind him, the lone figure now walks across the battlefield. The horizon is calm, but the silence carries the weight of what just occurred. He doesn't look back. Suddenly, a cut to a modern setting, a quiet living room. A TV flickers with weather updates and reminders to stay safe from the heat. A man watches silently. His name is Tokakura Raizu. He prepares for his day with a heavy sigh, the fatigue already clinging to him like a second skin. He heads out the door, his thoughts consumed by a simple truth. He's tired. Just as Takakura Raizu stepped out into the sunlight, something struck him. A sudden pain deep in his chest, sharp and unexpected. His legs gave out beneath him. No warning. No time. Collapsed in front of his building. He struggled to breathe. He gasped, heart pounding, vision fading. In those final moments, one thought echoed louder than the pain. He didn't want it to end like this. And just like that, the life of Takakura Raizu came to a quiet end. But fate wasn't finished with him. In a world far removed from his own, Raizu opened his eyes once more. He was no longer the man he once knew. His name now was Wom, now wearing armor. Standing among soldiers, Wom clasped his hands together out of instinct, a gesture from a lifelong past. When someone pointed it out, he brushed it off. It had become a habit, even in a different world. Some habits are hard to let go. A fellow soldier, Jose, called out to him. They needed to regroup. The field was quiet now, the conflict over, but the tension still lingered. Others joked about the results of the battle, teasing over numbers and recognition. Wom remained quiet, his eyes steady. When praised for his efforts, Wom's answer was simple. He wasn't proud. He wasn't chasing glory. He was doing what he was ordered to do. That was the role he had been given in this world, and he carried it out with focus, not for attention, not for numbers, but because it was what he had to do as a soldier in this new life. Wom exists in a world where conflict continues. No matter what his past was, here and now, he must keep moving forward through smoke, steel, and silence, because war still rages. As night falls over the war-torn camp, Wom stays silent, watching the flames dance beside resting soldiers. His companion Jose tries to shake off the fatigue, joking that Wom's always the serious one, but Wom simply responds without looking. He hears everything. Laughter and chatter echo through the tents. Some celebrate, others just survive. Later that evening, Wom sits quietly with his rations when a loud, cheerful voice calls his name. It's Due, a commanding officer with a strong presence and even stronger drink. He stumbles over congratulating Wom for his performance earlier in battle. Wom doesn't seem impressed. Due smells heavily of alcohol and boasts that he took down more opponents himself, 15 to be exact. He grins, claiming that makes him the winner. Wom doesn't argue. The mood shifts when Due mentions his skill, a special kind of ability that separates some from the rest. Wom acknowledges it, even jokes about how he still couldn't beat Due, not without that power nearby. Two new faces appear, Burrito and Noor, fresh recruits who survived their first battle. They stand out not just for their matching armor but for their energy. Burrito introduces himself with flair, and Noor follows with quiet confidence. The topic of skills quickly sparks debate. Burrito calls it unfair. Noor asks about Due's strength. The commander, proud as ever, explains that his hammer technique can break through any armor. Wom watches on as the conversation unfolds. For Noor, it's exciting, something to aim for. For Wom, it's different. He looks off into the night, wondering what it would be like to have that kind of strength, that kind of power, a skill, something that could change the tide of everything. Later, Wom sits near the fire again, sipping from a cup. A fellow soldier teases him, asks if he secretly wants a skill of his own. Wom doesn't answer directly. He only says he'd accept it if it came for free. They laugh, talk shifts to magic. Someone asks if he's interested in that too. Another jokes that they already have a magic user in the squad. Wom looks away, almost as if remembering something. He admits magic is nice to dream about, but that's all it is, a dream. The others take it lightly, but Jose notices something deeper behind Wom's words. He presses him, asks if something's wrong. Wom doesn't answer directly, only says he's not great at getting along with people. They let it pass, just for now, before the fire burns too low. Due leans in and reminds the group of what's ahead. Tomorrow, they'll be fighting again. The campfire flickered as the announcement was made starting tomorrow. Their next opponent would be Miad. Wom sat silently, processing the change. A new conflict was about to begin, one far greater than what they had faced before. Maps were drawn, territories outlined, Liberator, a trade federation, was splitting for good, and the real battle was only beginning. Saria City was now the rally point, a crucial location bordering the Miad Kingdom and the Highserk Empire. The enemy forces had already begun moving. The commander's words were clear: their real objective was Miad for Wom and the others. That meant regrouping and pushing forward. The war was evolving. Back at the camp, Berito, Nur, and the rest of the squad gathered close. The mood was no longer light. Everyone knew what was coming. Wom's tone turned somber as he reminded them this wouldn't be like anything they'd seen before. It would be a large-scale operation. Everyone had to be ready. The next day, the battlefront roared back to life. Rain fell lightly across the battlefield. Wom moved forward through the haze, his thoughts echoing within. He wasn't here for glory. He was a soldier because he wanted to stay alive. Every movement was instinct. Every decision was survival. As he pressed on, a comrade's voice reminded him he owed him one. Close calls were constant now. The tension never lifted. Eventually, they arrived at the gates of Saria City. Wom drifted into thought, only to be snapped back by a commanding voice. He was caught daydreaming again. The squad had officially entered the city. Inside, it was calmer, at least on the surface. Wom's companions suggested visiting Commander Due for a drink. Wom agreed, but the weight on his shoulders was growing heavier. The streets of Saria were filled with people, but not all were citizens. Many were struggling beggars, displaced families, those trying to survive the aftermath of war. As Wom walked through, someone grabbed his sleeve. A woman, worn from hardship, offered companionship. She asked, gently, "How about tonight?" Wom looked at her. He didn't answer with cruelty, only clarity. He declined, quietly, firmly. She watched him leave, and though she said nothing, her expression said everything. Wom paused for a moment, glancing back at the woman from before. Quietly, he reached into his pouch and handed her a small offering, enough to buy food. No words of sympathy, just a simple act. She was surprised. Her voice trembled as she thanked him and disappeared back into the alley. Wom returned to the street, the weight of the city's silence following him. One of his comrades advised him not to give too much. These things spread fast. If word got out, he'd be surrounded by people desperate for help. Jose warned him with a smirk. The good nature like that could get him in trouble, but Wom only gave a small nod. He'd be careful. Even so, part of him couldn't ignore it. He was reminded once again of where he came from. He wasn't born into privilege. His home was a simple village. Farming didn't bring enough to survive, and that's why he enlisted. Not for pride or cause, but to provide. Army wages were the only way to keep the roof over his family's head. Without it, he wouldn't have had a home to return to. Now, looking at those struggling in the streets, Wom began to wonder, would his own family end up the same? Were they one bad harvest away from this? Saria hadn't always looked like this. Wom overheard soldiers talking nearby. One of them explained that years ago, this region, the former Konoha Kingdom, had been fertile and was a land full of food, good soil, and peaceful people. Not like this now. A map outlined what once was. 5 years ago, this was Konoha territory, but due to political tensions and expanding borders, Konoha found itself at odds with the Highserk Empire. Even the livestock in Konoha were fed better than what Wom had growing up. Eventually, the Miad Grand Duca, former noble from Konoha, beat his homeland. He allied with Farius and seized power. That led to the creation of the Miad Kingdom. One by one, villages were abandoned. Farms burned, people scattered. Now this ruined state of things wasn't just the aftermath of war. It was the result of choices, alliances, betrayals, and failed leadership. The soldier speaking explained that the people of Konoha didn't just resent Highserk. Their anger ran even deeper toward Farius, toward Miad and the ones who left them behind. Wom listened in silence. None of this was new to him, but hearing how it all came together only made his burden feel heavier. As the sun dipped behind the buildings, Wom finally arrived at his destination, a quiet tavern tucked into the side of Saria's worn streets. He spoke softly to himself, as if reaffirming a promise. One day, he would face that enemy again. This time he would not lose. Inside, the squad gathered. It wasn't just a place to rest, it was a small moment of normalcy, of laughter, of hot food, and shared stories. The commander offered to cover the drinks, and no one objected. The group toasted over simple bean soup and bread, raising their cups to the next objective, the Miad Kingdom. It was clear this mission was only just beginning. Wom stared down at his meal. Steam rose gently from the bowl. The taste brought back memories, nostalgic yet bittersweet. He thought he was done with this food, but in that moment, it felt different. He soaked the bread and took a quiet bite. A rare smile crossed his face. Laughter surrounded him. Even Due, the commander, was in good spirits, encouraging everyone to eat and drink their fill. For a few brief moments, the war outside the walls didn't matter. But as the night went on, the drinks flowed too freely. Wom, not used to the heavy alcohol, began to lose focus. He struggled to hold it together. A sudden wave of dizziness struck him, and he barely held himself up. His companions noticed and reassured him it could wait. He didn't need to force a report tonight. Wom excused himself, walking through the quiet city alone. From the window above, Berito and the others watched. One of them remarked quietly, "This was how Wom always was, even before the fighting, always carrying more than he showed." Down below, Wom leaned against the wall in a narrow alleyway. His thoughts spiraled. He didn't say it aloud, but the weight was crushing. He questioned everything. Was there truly a difference between being a soldier and being something else? He knew what people called him behind closed doors, and in that silence the echoes of guilt never stopped. But he didn't have long to linger. The next morning the courtyard came alive. Soldiers stood in formation, their expressions firm. Commander Gerard Berger stepped forward, the head of the Mayad district army. He addressed the troops with confidence, his voice steady over the assembled crowd. The message was simple. This war had lasted long enough. It was time to bring it to an end. For those who stood in that circle, their orders were clear. March forward, represent their empire with pride, and show no hesitation. No one questioned it. Not today. The sound of weapons echoed through the air. Wom stood at the front line, surrounded by armored allies, his heartbeat steady, but his thoughts restless. He told himself again, this was survival. Just survival. Jose noticed Wom's unease. The color in his face was off, and Wom brushed it off as a hangover. But the truth weighed heavier than that. Something deeper had settled in his chest as he walked with the others. Thoughts began to swirl, questions about purpose, about what he truly wanted. His gaze, clouded and tired, spoke louder than any words. Their next mission was clear. The Highserk Empire's forces had been divided into 3 major squads, all departing from Saria City. The goal was to capture key points across the Mayad territory. Wom and Dui's unit had been assigned the most difficult path, directly toward a heavily guarded fort with thousands holding the line. From a distance, the castle came into view, paramount fort, towering, imposing, a symbol of what lay ahead. The group paused for a moment. One of the soldiers made a remark about the structure, half joking that this was the real reward of war. But the atmosphere stayed sharp. This wouldn't be easy. As the group scouted the area, something caught Wom's eye. He questioned Jose, who had walked off alone, his attention drawn to a scorched patch of ground. No answers came, only silence and unease. Moments later, a commanding voice offered directions. The path forward had been chosen. Back at the camp, light conversations sparked between Berito, Noor, and the others. They joked, poked fun, and tried to break the tension. Even Jose chimed in. Wom stayed calm, centered, while his companions lightened the mood. Noor shared her concern. Though it was her first time near a real siege, she reminded herself not to worry because Wom would be there. Even if things got difficult, they knew Wom would stand strong. Someone mentioned his past battles. Others called him cold, a soldier who carried out his duty with calm precision. But Wom didn't wear pride on his sleeve. Instead, he just listened, keeping his thoughts guarded. Then, the alarm was raised. Movement in the distance. The enemy had arrived. The tension snapped in an instant. Wom turned sharply, his instincts activated. Someone shouted the conflict. With starting, Dui's voice rang out over the crowd, rallying everyone with one order. Give it everything you've got. At the base of the fortress, Wom and Dui's squad took formation behind makeshift wooden shields. The fortress loomed over them, its towering walls lined with defenders. The enemy's archers were already in place, waiting for a signal. The order was given, and with it, the first barrage began. Arrows rained down like a storm. The shield wall held firm, but the pressure mounted with every step forward. Some of the squad members flinched, others pushed ahead, swallowing their fear. A sudden burst of impact shattered the silence. A powerful attack, clearly boosted by a skill, struck the front lines. The enemy was using high-powered projectile techniques. Commanders yelled warnings not to reveal the weak points in their formation. Wom's eyes sharpened. Noor was close behind, and he quickly urged her to stay back. The chaos around them was getting more dangerous by the second. Then came the signal. Advance toward the wall. With shields raised and determination steady, the squad rushed forward. Wom's steps were heavy, but deliberate. He blocked a powerful magic strike with his shield. Large orbs of water magic crashed into the ground around him. It wasn't just physical defense anymore. Their opponents were combining skill and sorcery. In the middle of the charge, Wom held his ground and shielded his allies. Noor shouted in surprise. Their foes weren't just defending the walls, they were pushing back hard. One of the mages identified the water technique, confirming it as magic enhanced. Suddenly, an explosion from the gate caught everyone's attention. The enemy commander gave the order to strike now. Arrows and spells launched in tandem as reinforcements arrived. At the walls, Wom and Dui's squad was now boxed in from both sides. Inside the command post, the battalion's strategy was being finalized. Surround the gate, cut off reinforcements, break the wall. Back on the field, Wom consulted Noor about their next move. The walls weren't completely surrounded yet, and they still had a chance to climb. Moments later, a scout confirmed new orders, climb the walls and launch a full-scale attack. They were expected to breach the defenses without delay, without hesitation. The squad took to the ladders. Wom led the charge, shield on his back and blade ready. Nor followed close behind. Arrows flew toward them. A warning was shouted, "Don't let them climb." Wom turned just in time to block a strike aimed at Noor. Mid-climb, one of the defenders moved in close. Wom nearly lost his grip, but Will stepped in, providing just enough cover to stabilize the ascent. Wom acknowledged him quickly and pressed on. Chaos spread across the top of the fortress wall as the attackers finally made their way up. The defenders were caught off guard, unable to react in time. Confusion erupted as the shield units clashed with the unexpected force. Shock settled into the faces of the defending soldiers. They hadn't anticipated the breakthrough to come this quickly. From the ladders, Wom and his squad surged upward. The climb was treacherous, but they fought their way up without hesitation. On reaching the top, they were immediately met with resistance. Steel collided as they tried to push past the walls. Defenders. It became clear that this part of the battle would be up close and unrelenting. Among the rising tension, Wom noticed a Shiftner was in trouble. One of the defenders had broken formation and was advancing aggressively. As Wom tried to hold the line, he heard his name being called out in desperation. He turned just in time to see Noor overwhelmed. Further down the wall, Noor stumbled back, stunned by the presence of a new figure. A tall, imposing knight had appeared, his armor bearing insignias of rank. His presence alone caused the soldiers around him to pause. Noor froze in place, unsure whether to strike or flee. Wom locked eyes with the knight. The air shifted. The man wasn't just any soldier. Everything about him screamed seasoned combatant. Without waiting, the knight charged, his weapon raised, and Wom braced for the incoming clash. He knew instantly this wasn't going to be an easy match. The knight made his declaration. He was a proud soldier of the principality, determined to hold the line and protect their lands. But Wom was unshaken. He met the knight's challenge head-on, standing tall amidst the chaos. The battle on the wall had turned into something much more personal. The clash between the two was immediate and thunderous. The knight's heavy strikes were relentless, and his defense near impenetrable. Wom struggled to find an opening, aware that time was against him. Every moment spent here meant Noor was still exposed. Wom's frustration grew. The knight's armor was too thick, and his weapon couldn't land a proper hit. He needed to finish this fast. His mind raced through tactics. This wasn't a fight he could drag out. He looked toward Noor's direction, realizing she wouldn't last much longer without help. His thoughts pieced together quickly. The commander should have been the one dealing with this level of threat, but distractions had kept him out of the way. That left Wom with no other option. He had to act, and act now, or risk losing the squad's most vulnerable member. There was no room left for delay. Wom shifted his stance and prepared to finish the duel. The knight had to be dealt with right here, on this very wall, before he could advance further. Wom's eyes narrowed, fully focused. This was at the moment that would decide everything. Wom's gaze narrowed as he faced off with the armored knight. A small, amused smirk crept across his face. With a calm, almost taunting tone, he readied his blade. His movements were fluid, and for a moment it felt like the battlefield had quieted around him. His confidence wasn't bravado, it was intent. In the blink of an eye, Wom closed the gap. His strike landed hard, pushing the knight off balance. The enemy stumbled, caught off guard by Wom's sheer momentum. The clash continued as Wom pressed forward, refusing to let up. Every step was precise, every blow deliberate. But something shifted. Wom felt it in his hands. His sword moved with an unfamiliar ease. His eyes flickered with recognition. This wasn't just adrenaline. His body felt lighter, more responsive, like a current of energy had surged through him. Something was different. Then came the realization. Around him shimmered a faint or subtle but powerful, a magical barrier. Without summoning it consciously, his body had begun reacting, adapting. His sword danced with new purpose. Every move now felt instinctive, sharpened by something beyond him. The knight across from him shouted, trying to hold his ground. His strikes were wild, driven by frustration. But Wom no longer looked at him with concern. There was no panic, only focus. The tide was turning, and Wom was the reason. Steel met steel again, but this time Wom flowed like water. He deflected with ease, countered with precision. The knight's guard began to break under the rhythm. Each swing of Wom's sword was faster, stronger, his dominance undeniable. Knight couldn't understand it. Why was Wom smiling amidst the chaos? His grin seemed out of place and settling even. It wasn't mockery, it was clarity. Wom had embraced the storm, and now he moved through it with total control. The knight's confidence began to crumble. He couldn't comprehend how someone of Wom's rank had cornered him like this. Whispers began to spread. Wom wasn't just another soldier. He was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Behind him, allied voices rose in unison. The route had been secured. Reinforcements surged up the wall, rallying behind Wom's advance. The defenders staggered, unable to hold the line. It was a turning point and the charge pressed on. Amid the momentum, Wom's first concern was Noor. He rushed to her side, eyes scanning for wounds. She was bruised but steady. With a quiet nod, she reassured him. The battle wasn't done, but for now, she could still stand, and Wom wasn't about to let her fight alone. Wom steadied his stance. With unwavering focus, he clenched his fist, channeling everything into one decisive move. Around him, the chaos intensified, but his voice carried the weight of certainty. He launched forward, barreling through the enemy lines, clearing the path in a single forceful strike that left onlookers stunned. As the dust settled, Wom couldn't help himself. That surge of power, it had to be tested. Amid the crumbling stronghold, Commander Due emerged, his voice calm but impressed. He'd been watching Wom's growth hadn't gone unnoticed. Recognition from someone like Due wasn't given lightly. After the storm, silence followed. One of the soldiers approached Wom, offering him a chance to rest. His reply was brief, his part was done. Noor, standing nearby, looked on with a mix of concern and admiration. For a moment, the battlefield's weight seemed to lift. Noor stepped forward, a faint smile on her face. She expressed her thanks, grateful that the bleeding had finally stopped. Her voice was steady now, strength returning. Wom acknowledged her quietly. He didn't need praise, but it was good to know he made a difference. The wind picked up across the bloodied ramparts. Wom tilted his head back and stared at the sky. Against all odds, he had survived. Around him the aftermath was still settling, but the moment was his. For now he could breathe. As night approached, Wom sat alone, shield resting beside him. The sun had barely set, yet it felt like an entire lifetime had passed. The fort, under siege since morning, had finally surrendered. But Wom knew one thing: this was just the beginning. His mission wasn't over. Not even close.